Nobody planned for this moment. Nobody scheduled it. Nobody announced it. And absolutely nobody in that stadium was prepared for what was about to happen on the red clay of Roland-Garros. Because on May 26, 2026, the richest man on the planet quietly walked into court. Philippe Chatrier. No press release, no security spectacle, no social media teaser, and what unfolded next broke the internet within hours. But before we get there, you need to understand what was already happening inside that stadium. Because the story of that afternoon had nothing to do with a billionaire. It had everything to do with a 20-year-old Filipina who was already carrying the weight of an entire nation on her shoulders before she even walked through the tunnel. The moment Alexandra Eala stepped onto that court, something was different. This was not polite applause and quiet murmurs. This was not the usual atmosphere of a second-round Grand Slam match. Court Philippe Chatrier, one of the most historic venues in all of sport, was transformed into something the tournament had never witnessed before. 40,000 people packed into every corner. A sea of Philippine flags moving in perfect synchronized rhythm like a single living organism. The relentless chant of Laban Alex echoing off the walls with a force that rattled the clay dust off the stadium seats. This did not sound like a tennis match. It sounded like a revolution. And then, completely without warning, a man quietly took a seat in the front row. No announcement. No entrance. He simply sat down. But within seconds, cell phones were rising across the stands. Whispers spread through the crowd like a shockwave. Tournament security moved toward him instinctively. Elon Musk raised one hand and signaled them to stop.
He was not there to be seen. He was there to watch.
But to understand why the busiest man on earth quietly walked into a tennis stadium that afternoon, you have to go back to what happened before this match even began. Because Eala was not supposed to be here. Her first-round match had been a brutal, grueling, controversy-filled war that left most observers wondering whether she had anything left in the tank. A code violation at the worst possible moment. A physical battle that went deep into a third set. The kind of opening round that breaks rising stars and sends them home early with their confidence in pieces. Most players would have needed a week to recover mentally. Eala had one day. And standing across the net in round 2 was not some inexperienced opponent she could ease through. This was a seasoned, physically imposing veteran who had spent years learning exactly how to dismantle younger players on a clay court, how to push them behind the baseline, how to drain their legs, how to make every single point feel like running a marathon in sand. The experts looked at the draw and felt sympathy. The fans looked at the stands and felt something completely different. Because those fans in the upper rows, many of them overseas Filipino workers who had drained their savings, crossed multiple continents, and sacrificed weeks of income just to be inside that stadium, they did not travel this far to watch their player lose. They came to witness something that the rankings and the predictions and the match statistics could never measure. The first set belonged to Eala completely. She came out swinging. Massive ground strokes. Fierce aggression from the baseline. The kind of fearless, explosive tennis that makes a crowd forget to sit down. She took the first set 6-3, and the stadium erupted so loudly that commentators in the broadcast booth struggled to hear each other speak. But here is where the match turned dark. Because professional veterans do not panic. They adjust. They are patient. And this opponent, experienced, tactical, ruthless, began doing exactly what she was built to do. Deep heavy topspin pushing Eala further and further behind the baseline. Longer and longer rallies designed to expose every ounce of fatigue left over from the first-round war. The legs started to slow. The breath got sharper. The second set slipped away 4-6, and suddenly the mood inside that stadium shifted from euphoria to a silence, so heavy you could feel it pressing down on the stands. The third set was now all that stood between Eala and elimination. She broke early, raced to 2-love. The flags began waving again. Then the veteran broke straight back. 2-all. The momentum swung like a pendulum with no intention of stopping. Neither player was willing to yield a single inch. Baseline rally after baseline rally. Drop shot after drop shot. The physical exhaustion was so visible, so raw, that people watching at home were wincing with every exchange. Then the scoreboard hit 4-all. and the entire world seemed to hold its breath. This is the exact zone where legends are made and dreams go to die. For all in a deciding set at Roland-Garros. The Parisian heat baking the clay. 15,000 people sitting, completely motionless with anxiety. And in the front row, Elon Musk leaned forward. He did not check his phone. He did not glance at stock prices or respond to urgent messages. The man who is permanently obsessed with building the future was completely, totally locked into the present moment. The game stretched into agony.
Deuce.
Advantage veteran. Back to deuce. A second deuce. A third. A fourth. Every single point a war of attrition. Every shot heavier than the last. At the fifth deuce, the air inside that stadium felt impossibly thin. Eala stood at the baseline, wiping the sweat from her eyes, staring across the net, standing on the absolute edge of collapse. Then the veteran fired a 120 miles per hour serve directly at her body. And Eala stepped around it. She unloaded a forehand return that screamed past the veteran before she could move a single step. 5-4. Eala to serve for the match. The crowd gasped so loudly it was audible on broadcast feeds across 3 continents. And this, right here, is the moment nobody will ever forget. During the changeover, as Eala sat on the bench with a towel over her head trying to find air in her lungs, something happened in the front row that stopped the entire stadium cold. Elon Musk stood up. He walked to the edge of the court. He reached into a large bag he had carried in quietly and began pulling out custom black shirts. Bold letters, Philippine flag colors, and printed across the back in large, unmistakable text, one single. Then he raised a megaphone. He told the stadium he had watched her fight. He told them he had watched her carry an entire nation. And he told her, directly, that she was not carrying it alone. He raised his fist into the Parisian sky and shouted one word into that megaphone. Laban. 15,000 voices answered him in perfect unison. Laban. 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 The sound shook the stadium. Literally shook it. Now pause here for a second, because I need you to imagine this honestly. You are the most exhausted you have ever been in your life. You are serving for the biggest match of your career. And the richest human being on the planet just ignited 15,000 people into a synchronized chant with your name at the center of it. Does that paralyze you? Or does it set you on fire? Tell me in the comments. Because for Alexandra Eala, the answer was written all over her face. She lifted the towel off her head. She looked at that wall of black shirts. She looked at her mother in the stands with her hands pressed together in prayer. She looked at Musk standing completely still in the front row. And she simply nodded. One slow, certain nod. She walked back to the baseline, bounced the ball once,
Twice. 3 times. And served.
down the center. Unreturnable. 15-love. The crowd roared. Another serve wide this time. Frame of the racket. Into the stands. 30-love. The flags were waving so furiously, they looked like they might take off. Heavy serve to the body. Eala steps inside the baseline. Cross-court forehand. Weak defensive lob comes back. She moves forward. She smashes it out of the air. 40-love. 3 match points. 15,000 people rose to their feet simultaneously. Nobody breathed. The clay dust settled. The afternoon sun hung over Paris like a spotlight. She tossed the ball. Served wide.
Slightly out.
The veteran blocked a floating return back to the middle. Eala stepped forward, saw the open court, and absolutely crushed a forehand winner into the deep corner.
Gone.
Before the veteran's feet could move.
Game. Set. Match.
6-3. For 6. 7-5. The stadium did not cheer. It detonated. Eala dropped to her knees on the red clay instantly. Racket gone. Hands over her face. The tears came fast, and they came hard, and nobody in that stadium was ashamed of their own. The weight of a nation lifted. Right there on the clay of Roland-Garros in front of the entire watching world. Elon Musk stood completely still in the front row. The man who builds rockets and self-driving machines and satellites that blanket the earth stood completely still, and watched a 20-year-old woman cry on her knees in Paris with the quiet respect of someone who had just witnessed something his technology could never replicate. Later, near the tunnel exit, he waited for her. He told her he had seen rockets land themselves on floating platforms in the middle of the ocean. But he had never seen anything like what she just did. She thanked him for the shirts, for believing in her. He stopped her. He said he did not give out the shirts because he believed in her. He gave out the shirts because he already did. Within 24 hours, the footage hit 50 million views across every major platform on Earth. People who had never watched a single tennis match were watching this clip on repeat. Teenagers in Tokyo, families in Manila, businessmen in New York, all watching the same 20-year-old Filipina collapse to her knees on red clay with her hands covering her face. The hashtags Musk for Eala and Laban shirt knocked political news off the global trending charts entirely. The WTA communications team was scrambling to keep up with a media wave they had completely lost control of. In her post-match press conference, Eala sat in front of a packed media room and told them she genuinely thought she was hallucinating when she saw him in the front row. She had to ask her coach twice if what she was seeing was real. But she made one thing crystal clear to every reporter in that room. The shirts were never about him. They were a message to her fans. Proof that someone with a platform the size of the entire internet had looked at their struggle, their savings drained, their continents crossed, their nights without sleep, and decided it deserved to be seen by the world. That night, Musk posted a wide-angle photograph of the stadium. 15,000 people in black, flags raised, one unified chant frozen in a still image. His caption was 4 sentences. He wrote that he had built machines that explore the stars, cars that drive themselves, rockets that land on floating platforms in the ocean. But nothing had prepared him for the raw power of 15,000 people chanting one single word together. He said Alex Eala was not just a tennis player. She was a movement,